Jason was my childhood sweetheart. I had been secretly in love with him all along. However, he fell in love with Ella, the new transfer student. When both of us fell into the water at the same time, he abandoned me and turned to save Ella instead. And when Ella slandered me by saying that I pulled her into the water, he defended her and angrily rebuked me. After I was reborn and woke up, I smiled indifferently and said sarcastically, "Who cares?" Then I turned around and walked far away from them. My name is Nancy, and I was reborn. I came back 3 days ago. That day, 16-year-old Nancy fell into the Ilion Lake on the school campus and drowned. The one who woke up was me, Nancy, 10 years later. Actually, the water in the lake was only as deep as an adult sneeze. It was hardly possible to drown anyone. I curled up the corners of my mouth, showing a hint of sarcasm, and found it rather funny. But what was even funnier was that Jason gave up saving me, his childhood sweetheart and neighbor sister, and instead swam towards the new transfer student Ella. Thinking of this, I pursed my lips, my eyes turned cold, and I couldn't help but sneer in my heart. 16-year-old Nancy was very surprised by Jason's behavior, and her heart was even broken to the point of despair. Moreover, she forgot to struggle for a moment and just sank to the bottom of the lake and lost her life. After all, she had been secretly in love with Jason all the time. However, 26-year-old Nancy was not surprised at all. Because in the following 10 years, whenever Ella was around, the so-called childhood sweetheart bond was not even comparable to her one smile. Thinking of this, I gave a bitter smile. I thought to myself, fine, from now on, you two, the scumbag and the green tea, can be a couple. Love each other and stay together forever. Just leave me alone. I had been resting at home for 3 days. Today, I planned to go to school. I got up, picked up my school bag, opened the door of my room, and saw my father, who was preparing breakfast. While he was busy carrying the steamed meat buns with one hand, he greeted me. "Nancy, come and have breakfast. Hot and big meat buns. Your favorite." Glancing at the school bag in my hand from the corner of his eye, he couldn't help but show his concern. "Why don't you rest for a few more days? There's no rush to go to school." "Dad, I'm fine. Besides, I've already rested for 3 days. I'm completely okay now. Let the child go if she wants to. I think she's been in good condition these days. She's even been reading books and doing exercises at home," Mother said directly. "All right then, Nancy, if you don't feel well, just tell Dad. Dad will come and pick you up and take you home." Okay. I lowered my head to eat the buns, and couldn't help but feel a little choked up. My heart was full of guilt and sadness. My parents were so nice, but I used to always make them worry because of Jason. In this new life, I would never let those things happen again. Mother was observing Nancy's expression while tentatively starting a conversation. "Nancy, about Jason." I stopped but didn't say anything. Father, however, was very angry. "That kid. We've taken such good care of him usually. But at the crucial moment, he just left Nancy behind. He's really an ungrateful wretch." While saying that, he hesitated for a moment. Then he tentatively advised me again. "Nancy, you should just stay away from him from now on, okay?" I felt a little embarrassed and also a bit choked up. It was the same in the previous life. My parents knew that I liked to be with Jason very much and always liked to cling to him. After experiencing this incident, I thought I would keep some distance from him, but it turned out to be the same as before. Thinking of this, I became serious. "Dad, don't worry. I'll stay away from Jason from now on. Cherish life and stay away from love-struck idiots." I added this silently in my heart. After going through the previous life, I had already realized that Jason was not just love-struck but had reached the level of being an idiot. He could see no one but Ella and hear no one's words but hers. Good. Seeing that she had listened, Dad was extremely happy. "That's the right thing to do," Mother quickly followed. "Originally, seeing you two grow up together and go to school together, we thought you could take care of each other. But this time, what he did was really disappointing. Although it's not that one must save a certain person in that kind of critical situation. But considering the distance, you were closer to him, but he bypassed you to save someone else. Considering the closeness, you grew up together with him and had the bond from childhood, but he abandoned you. During the 3 days you were resting at home, he didn't even come to ask about you once. Mother carefully considered and made a conclusion. From this, you should know that this person is not worth associating with. You'd better stay away from him as soon as possible. Just treat him as a strange acquaintance. Mommy is absolutely right. I nodded vigorously as I listened, sincerely admiring in my heart. It was still as philosophical as always. TSK. After going out the door, looking at the familiar scenes along the way that were engraved in my memory, I felt really stupid. I was clearly so happy, having such wonderful parents. Why did I still hang on to Jason? It was so stupid. So stupid. I decided that from now on, I must stay away from idiots, away from Jason and Ella, and make up for all my previous regrets. On the tree-lined path not far from the school gate, I met Jason. He stopped me, looking tired and conflicted. Some words finally came out of his mouth. Nancy, I didn't mean it that day. Besides, I saw you stand up. I thought you could get up by yourself. I felt as disgusted as if I had eaten a fly, and also very angry and irritable. I couldn't wait to open up the head of the person in front of me to see what was really inside. I looked at the person in front of me, constantly thinking in my heart how I could have been so blind back then and actually believed his words. Yes, 16-year-old Nancy forgave him without any grudges after hearing his so-called apology and explanation today. But what was the truth? Ella pushed me down. When I was falling, I grabbed Ella and dragged her into the water too. Because the water wasn't deep, I could have saved myself. But just when I was about to stand up by grabbing something, Ella pulled me, and I directly fell back into the water. Caught off guard, I choked on the water again. But how could love-struck idiot Jason see these things? I took a deep breath and asked as calmly as possible, Ella, what did she tell you? Jason seemed to remember something, and the guilt that was originally on his face disappeared. Nancy, it was for your own good that I saved Ella first. She originally wanted to help you, but you dragged her down. What would the teachers and classmates think of you if something happened to her? He looked righteous, and his tone was mixed with complaints and a little anger. Suddenly, I didn't want to say anything more to him, nor did I want to have any more entanglement with him. So, I looked at him and seriously warned him. From now on, don't call me Nancy anymore. It makes me sick. Also, don't come and bother me anymore. I don't want to talk to you, nor do I want to listen to you. Then I walked away without looking back. Jason couldn't believe what he had just heard. However, he didn't really care either, thinking that I was just a little angry. He believed that I would come to him again soon. Walking into the gate of No. 1 middle school, I was a little dazed as I looked around. It had been 10 years since I last came back here. This was the time of my most youthful days. It wasn't until the homeroom teacher stood on the podium that I came back to my senses. After class, the homeroom teacher called me to the office. As I expected, she told me about the recommendation to Peking University. Nancy, you are the most outstanding student in our class. From the time you entered the school until now, your grades have always been excellent. Regarding the recommendation to Peking University, you should think it over carefully. Come to me to get the materials after you've made up your mind. We'll prepare the application together. I suppressed my excitement and walked back to the classroom. Not getting the recommendation to Peking University was the thing I regretted most in my youth. It wasn't that I wasn't qualified or that I failed. It was that I gave the opportunity to Jason back then. This time, I wouldn't give it up. What should be mine, I would firmly hold on to. Suddenly, the classroom was noisy. The classmates were all scrambling to run outside, as if there was something exciting to see. Then, Leo, Jason's lackey, ran over to me. Nancy, Jason fell down the stairs and hit his head. Why don't you go and see him quickly? Oh? Oh. What do you mean? Leo was very puzzled when he saw that I didn't seem to care. Nothing much. Do you think I can make him better just by looking at him? By the way, I forgot to tell you. I've broken off with Jason. We'll never have anything to do with each other again. From now on, don't let me hear that name again. How could it be? Aren't you childhood sweethearts? I was speechless and was disgusted by this so-called childhood sweetheart again. Immediately, my face turned black. Leo saw that I didn't want to talk to him and was unyielding, so he pursed his lips and walked away. I didn't see Jason in the following classes. I thought I wouldn't see him today, but unexpectedly, he was waiting at the school gate again. He said, "Nancy, we are friends, relatives, and even siblings. We will never be estranged, and we will always be with each other, won't we?" I was dumbfounded and looked at him extremely speechless, thinking to myself how he could say such things. Nancy, Ella is the person I like. You two don't conflict with each other. I felt a little uncomfortable in my stomach, but my expression was like I was constipated. However, Jason still looked affectionate, with a hint of being in a dilemma and conflicted. Looking at him like this, I frowned and thought, always feeling that something was wrong. Looking at the flow of people pouring out of the school gate, I suddenly saw the light. 16-year-old Jason didn't have such high tactics. He would only quarrel with me, give me the cold shoulder, and walk away in a huff for Ella's sake. I remembered the news I heard today that Jason fell down the stairs. Suddenly, I understood that the greedy and disgusting look in front of me must be because 26-year-old Jason had come back. Jason was reborn too. Thinking of what he had just said, I realized that I still overestimated him. I originally thought that this time he would definitely choose Ella, but it turned out that he wanted both. Jason is really shameless and greedy. He can't let go of Ella, longing for the first love that he once lost and wants to get it back. Meanwhile, he also can't bear to part with me, or perhaps it's our family that he's reluctant to give up, using it to make up for the almost non-existent family affection. However, this time, I don't want to play any games with him anymore. So, with a teasing look on my face and my chin raised, I said to him, "Jason, have you got something wrong? Helping you and taking care of you before was just my act of doing a good deed every day. After all, I'm such a kind person, and you looked so pitiful." Looking at his face that suddenly darkened and his disbelieving eyes, I got a little distracted and remembered the scene when I first met Jason. Jason's family and mine have been neighbors for over a decade. When he was a child, his mother ran away with another man. Since then, his father either beat him or scolded him and didn't care about anything else. That was when I got to know Jason. On the day I met him, I was coming back from celebrating my birthday outside with my parents. Jason was huddled up, squatting in front of his house door, looking sleepy and so pitiful. I took him to my house and took good care of him. He slept at my house that day because his father was out drinking and didn't come back all night. From then on, whenever I had something, I would share half of it with him. And my parents, out of sympathy for his misfortune, also took good care of him. Later, on every birthday, Jason would tell me that he liked and was very grateful for that day. Because on that day I came into this world, and also on that day, he met me and I pulled him out of the abyss and brought him sunshine. However, it was only many years later that I realized that many things like time, circumstances, and money can change a person beyond recognition. 10 years later, Jason was looking at Ella's photo with nostalgia, believing that the day he met Ella was the most wonderful day of his life, giving meaning to his whole life. She was the only light in his gloomy life. And I was just a hateful person who showed him pity and gave him charity to demonstrate my happiness and superiority. Since it's like this, then let me make everything come true. I came back to my senses, gave a cold laugh, and continued to explain kindly. My grandma has always told me since I was a child that I should accumulate more virtues and do more good deeds. I think it makes a lot of sense. So, when I got to know you, I knew it was time for me to accumulate virtues. Nancy, you. Jason looked at me through gritted teeth. I felt even happier. However, not anymore in the future. You're so greedy and have such misunderstandings about me. What if you rely on me in the future? It's too disgusting. I showed a look of extreme disgust and quickly waved my hand at him. Goodbye. Then I turned around and ran away, leaving a sentence in the wind, "Don't say you know me in the future." Leaving Jason standing there, looking angry and incredulous. Haha, was I supposed to stay and argue with him? Some things can never be made clear when arguing with a person who lives in his own world. It would only be a waste of time. Especially with a person like Jason who is selfish, twisted, and scheming. After that day, I didn't see Jason for a long time. I was also very busy preparing the materials for the recommended admission. Therefore, the homeroom teacher asked me to consult Hawk. Hawk is a senior who is one grade above me. He had already obtained the qualification for recommended admission to Peking University last year. He was just waiting to register at Peking University in September. The homeroom teacher gave me Hawk's contact information, and I made an appointment with him in the school activity room. As soon as the school bell rang, I packed my school bag and walked towards the activity classroom. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of Jason and Ella walking side by side, chatting and laughing, looking so sweet. I stood on the teaching building, watching their gradually receding figures, thinking to myself that in this life, I haven't done anything. There was no revenge, nor any entanglement. Will they really be as sweet and lasting as imagined? When I arrived at the activity classroom, Hawk was already there. He was a 17 or 18-year-old boy, wearing a white shirt and black pants, tall and slender, leaning lazily on the table, looking listlessly at the sunset in the sky, conspicuous and aloof. Sensing someone's arrival, he turned his head and moved his gaze. Unexpectedly, I met his pitch-black eyes, clear and bright, seemingly with a hint of surprise and also hiding a rare unruliness of a boy. I was amazed by his good looks and felt constrained by his aloof aura. I wanted to open my mouth but dared not make a sound. Suddenly, his aura softened, his refined eyebrows and eyes relaxed, and there seemed to be a smile on the corners of his mouth. "Did you come to see me?" He looked at me, as if waiting for my answer. "Yes. Senior, my name is Nancy. I want to ask you about the recommended admission." I opened my mouth nervously, somewhat avoiding his direct gaze. Hawk also seemed to sense my nervousness, so he withdrew his gaze and sat down casually. He handed me the materials on the table behind him. "These are the materials I prepared when applying for the recommended admission. You can take them for reference. If you have any questions, you can contact me again." I quickly took the materials and thanked him, thinking that he didn't seem so unapproachable. So I tentatively opened my mouth again. "Senior, I have a few more questions. May I ask you about them?" I was extremely polite, almost using honorifics. He frowned slightly, as if thinking about something. "Go ahead. You don't need to be so polite." He looked at me, seemingly speaking very seriously. So I also felt at ease to ask questions. After several rounds of questions and answers, I wasn't so nervous anymore. I gradually relaxed. Finally, Hawk seemed to have something else to do and left early. And I also hurried home to continue sorting out the materials I got. While sorting out the materials, I was once again full of admiration and amazement. No wonder he was a well-known top student in the whole city. His academic record was really excellent. Later, I had several more interactions with Hawk. Sometimes I asked him about the details I didn't understand about the application for recommended admission, and sometimes Hawk took the initiative to ask about my preparation progress. He also specifically reminded me that even though I had the opportunity to apply now, I should still pay attention to all the exams this semester because they would all be included in the materials in the end. I was also studying very hard, even harder than before. Because I had lost it once, I cherished it more. During the repeated interactions, I found that Hawk wasn't so unapproachable. Sometimes he was even very gentle and patient. So I became more casual when interacting with him, and the way I addressed him changed from "Senior" to "Hawk." The content of our chats also changed from the application for recommended admission to all kinds of things, from the remotest corners of the earth to trifles. He was very patient when chatting with me. I think we could probably be considered friends now that I end the most recent exam. I again became the first with an absolute advantage. To thank Hawk for his reminder, I invited him to dinner on the weekend. I also brought the local specialties sent by my grandma, a kind of fried sweet potato chips, a small fried snack from southern Hunan, and several packs of cured pork and sausages. Hawk had told me that his hometown was in southern Hunan and he had lived there for a long time when he was a child and had always missed the flavor of his hometown. I also told Hawk that every year my grandma would send some local specialties to our family to taste, and I would bring some to him to relieve his homesickness. Hawk and I made an appointment at a Hunan cuisine restaurant and tacitly ordered many classic Hunan dishes, such as stir-fried pork with peppers, stir-fried cured pork with Chinese leeks, stir-fried eel, etc. We ordered a whole table of dishes. Then, the two of us ate 2 buckets of rice. We still felt that we hadn't had enough, but we were really stuffed. We looked at each other with a smile, both hiding a teasing meaning. When we walked out after paying the bill, he said that maybe we could come here to eat next time. I said yes, and then the two of us laughed again. His smile was gentle and doting, which made me feel a little uneasy afterwards, as if something had gone off track. I nervously shifted my gaze and saw Jason and Ella. Through the transparent floor-to-ceiling windows, we could see that in the opposite milk tea shop, Jason and Ella were sitting close together, being all lovey-dovey. I frowned and shook my head, remembering Jason's plummeting grades in these recent exams, and gave a teasing huh. Hawk was very puzzled by my ever-changing expression and even found it interesting. He followed my gaze and saw a couple being all lovey-dovey, and immediately frowned too. Are they that Jason and Ella? How do you know? I was extremely surprised. The one middle school forum has been going crazy discussing the incident of falling into the Ilion Lake this semester. He said seemingly casually. Someone even took this as inspiration and imagined a big drama about love and hatred. Hawk was observing my expression and reaction as he said this. Really? It's not that exaggerated. This is reality, not a cheesy TV drama. I pretended to be very calm as I answered him while nervously taking out my phone and quickly searching, but I saw nothing. Regarding this, Hawk said that the content publisher had deleted the post on the same day. I didn't expect that Jason would come to me on his own initiative again. After parting with Hawk, I walked home alone. Then I saw Jason waiting for me at my house door. I live in an old-fashioned residential area without an elevator, and there are only 2 households on each floor. Coincidentally, my house is right opposite Jason's. And at this moment, he was standing at the doors of the 2 houses waiting for me. Jason had that heartbroken and miserable look again, his eyes dark and gloomy, with many emotions that I couldn't understand. Nancy. He suddenly called me. And I just felt a terrible headache. I thought to myself that he was like chewing gum that couldn't be shaken off. Nancy, you haven't come to see me for a long time. I was really speechless. I had never thought that Jason could be so unreasonable. Now he really had no shame. I tried to calm myself down and not let myself be forced to get agitated and angry like a madman. Oh, I'm busy. And it seems that you're also busy. I looked at him teasingly. Are you jealous? He stared at me fixedly, with a hint of joy in his eyes. And I thought I was going to have a heart attack and die. Jason, what on earth do you want? I don't think you came to see me to talk about such nonsense. Moreover, I don't think that between you and me, apart from being neighbors and classmates, there is any other relationship that gives you the right to question me with these out-of-line questions. Jason looked into my serious, calm, yet cold and direct eyes. His eyes changed color, and I had no idea what was going on in his mind. But I knew that the adult Jason, aside from those love affairs, should know how to weigh the pros and cons. After all, the Jason 10 years later had been through the ups and downs in the business world and would instinctively choose what was beneficial. Sure enough, after some thought, Jason revealed his purpose. Nancy, could you please give the recommended admission quota to me? Ha! I thought to myself, as expected. Without the opportunity one gave up last time, with his grades, How could he get into Peking University through the college entrance examination? Not a chance. I refused directly. Why? You clearly. He hesitated, as if not understanding why things had changed so much compared to the previous life. I pondered, looking at his expression, and found it rather amusing. 10 years later, the so-called President Jiang, who was a big shot in the business world, was feared by everyone for his ruthlessness. However, people also admired his background from the business school of Peking University, which gave him powerful connections and an upper-class social circle. It could be said that he had an advantage right from the start. And now, because I wasn't going to offer the opportunity this time, his success was going to be nipped in the bud. How could he be willing to accept that? Even if given a second chance, Jason still wanted to have a glorious life. He didn't want to struggle through the mire anymore, nor did he want to be looked down upon and questioned again. Jason suddenly grabbed my hand. Nancy, if you give me the recommended admission opportunity, you can ask for anything you want. Let go. I frowned and said loudly, Jason, I'm telling you, you've already lost your chance. Firstly, no matter what, I will never give this opportunity to you. On the other hand, even if I agreed to give it to you, you wouldn't be able to get it anymore. Originally, your grades were just barely passable, but now, they're simply unacceptable. Neither Peking University nor our school would ever give such a precious opportunity to someone like you who has neglected your studies because of puppy love. Jason seemed incredulous and also seemed to be thinking about the truth of all this. Maybe there was regret, maybe there was anger, but it had nothing to do with me. Without waiting for his reaction, I directly opened the door and went home. He quickly pushed against the door, wanting to say something more. But my father stopped him. My father was very angry. This was the first time he had seen Jason since the incident of falling into the water. But my mother was very calm. She and my father blocked Jason outside the door. My mother asked Jason, Student Jason, have we ever done anything wrong to you? No, no. Jason was a bit flustered by her way of addressing him. After all, my mother used to call him Jason affectionately before. Has Nancy ever done anything wrong to you? No, either. Jason thought for a moment. Auntie, you haven't done anything wrong to me, and your whole family has been very helpful to me. I'm really grateful. That's good. Since that's the case, I'll be straightforward. Obviously, my mother didn't want to listen to his nonsense either. We only have Nancy as our daughter, and naturally, we hope she can be safe, healthy, and happy. So, we hope you can keep your distance from her in the future. This is the thought of our whole family, including Nancy. At the end of this semester, we will move. We hope you won't come to bother our family anymore. We want to live a quiet life. Think of the past years as the kindness that kind-hearted people have shown you. Let it all be in the past. I looked at my mother with admiration again, feeling both touched and impressed. My father also directly said that his wife was really something. Jason left. I thought that a person like him probably wouldn't have the nerve to come back again. After leaving that day, Jason didn't go home. He went to find Ella, his first love in his heart, the true love that he hadn't forgotten for over a decade but had instead engraved deeper in his heart. Under the deep night sky, occasionally a few stars twinkled. Jason held Ella, who looked a bit bewildered, tightly in his arms and called out affectionately, Ella, will you leave me? Please don't leave me, okay? Jason, I won't leave you. I'll never leave you. Ella comforted him with a touched look on her face. Ella. Jason's eyes were dark, and an ambiguous and charming atmosphere began to spread. Not long after, the moonlight shone through the branches of the trees, and the mottled light outlined the figures of the two people kissing. After a long while, Jason held Ella and sat on a bench, and the two of them were deeply in love. Ella, believe me, I will definitely let you live a better life. We will surely be very happy. Jason, I believe you. As long as I'm with you, I feel very happy. I didn't know about all this, and I didn't want to know such a cheesy plot either. The river of time still flowed forward ceaselessly, and soon it was the summer vacation. I successfully got the recommended admission opportunity and also ended my high school career. As for Jason and Ella, I heard that they were living a sweet life, making others envious. During this period, Ella came to see me once. She had red eyes and looked aggrieved. She also sincerely asked me to forgive Jason and make up with him. I took out a small mirror and saw Jason's figure behind me. Then, I just left directly. I didn't want to waste my good mood to play this emotional drama with them. Countless times before, Ella had always been like this, pretending to be a weak daughter flower who had suffered great wrong and been bullied. She made Jason misunderstand me again and again, from glaring at me angrily to hating me to the bone, as if I was the only sinner who had separated them. I was left longing for love but unable to get it in that emotional entanglement. And under Ella's deliberate design, I couldn't escape and was forced to endure Jason's revenge. Now, I won't let myself get into such a situation again. With my anticipation, the whole family moved into a residential area with elevator apartments 10 kilometers away from our old home. The house was one that my parents had had their eyes on long ago, but they hadn't made a decision. What Jason did just accelerated the process. The whole family was very happy and actively packed up for the new home. Nancy, we'll go to Auntie Liao's for dinner later. Hurry up and get ready. Mother said happily. Auntie Liao was my mother's childhood friend and best friend. It was just that after Grandpa Liao passed away, she moved away from southern Hunan with her husband, and she hadn't been back for many years. After some twists and turns, when she learned that my mother was also in Haishur and had moved to the same residential area but a different building, she insisted on playing the role of the host. Mother carried the cured pork and sausages sent by Grandma and kept telling me that Auntie Liao must be missing the flavor of southern Hunan very much. When I saw Auntie Liao, I looked at the gentle, intellectual, and beautiful aunt and smiled sweetly and cutely. The beautiful aunt's eyes lit up immediately, and she kept praising me. Nancy has grown up so much. She's really pretty and cute. Not like my naughty son at all. He's not at all considerate. Hawk, come and meet Auntie Lynn and Nancy, your little sister. Suddenly, I saw Hawk shuffling out of the room in his slippers. At this moment, I felt that the aura of a male god that had surrounded Hawk was instantly shattered. He looked at me, who was stunned, with great interest. He said my name in a rather casual way. Nancy. Hawk, how could it be you? Why can't it be me? He murmured in a low voice. You know each other? The elders all expressed great surprise. When I was preparing the materials for the recommended admission, the senior helped me a lot. I quickly explained. Oh, so the cured pork and sausages that Hawk brought back were given by Nancy? Auntie Liao asked curiously. I nodded. No wonder they were so delicious, Hawk. You naughty boy, you didn't even know to invite Nancy to have dinner at home. Auntie Liao's enthusiasm was a bit overwhelming for me. After the meal, the four adults started reminiscing about the past. Hawk and I just looked at each other blankly. Finally, Hawk invited me to his study to see his collection of books. I sat on the sofa chair in the study. Hawk sat at the desk and chair opposite. He asked me, "Don't you really remember?" Remember what? I was puzzled. We met when we were kids. Really? I tried hard to recall, but I couldn't catch the tail of that memory. His eyes gradually dimmed, seeming to show regret and annoyance. I didn't want to see Hawk like this, so I quickly said, Hawk, it doesn't matter. We know each other now. And looking at today's situation, you can come to my house to freeload meals often in the future. He looked at me with clear eyes, and it was hard to tell whether I understood something or knew nothing at all. But suddenly, he smiled with relief. Well, we can be considered acquaintances from now on. The summer vacation without having to take extra classes or worry about further education was really enjoyable. Just when I was immersed in this happiness, I heard the news about Jason and Ella. It was rumored that one day when Jason went to see Ella as usual, he didn't wait for Ella. Instead, he accidentally heard Ella's voice in the small grove he passed by, along with another boy, Zoe, the rich young master from the next class who had always been at odds with Jason. When Jason saw them, The two were doing something inappropriate for children. Then, furious, the three of them got into a fight and couldn't separate from each other. Finally, under Jason's questioning, Ella confessed the truth. Everything was just a scheme. From Ella getting close to Jason, to making Jason lose the chance of being recommended for admission and his grades plummeting due to puppy love. Even her instigating the rift between me and Jason back then was all deliberately done. When it comes down to it, it was simply because Zoe, that rich young master, couldn't stand the way Jason looked down on everyone even though he had nothing. After noticing Jason's slight interest in Ella, he lured Ella with money and benefits to set up this scheme. This was really beyond my expectation. Even in my previous life, I just thought that Ella couldn't resist the temptation later and chose the wealthy and powerful Zoe. But it turns out that she never had any sincerity from the very beginning. Thinking about it like this, I was such a sucker. In my previous life, Ella did everything she could to instigate trouble, even making Jason believe that I had coerced and bribed him to leave. But no matter how Jason treated me, I always remembered the illusory friendship from the past and the unwillingness of having but getting nothing in return, so I never abandoned Jason. I sighed, silently thinking in my heart that I shouldn't have been so love-struck, and I shouldn't have been so obsessed. So, in this life, I have no obsessions anymore. Whether you are in heaven or hell, it has nothing to do with me. Jason came to see me again. This was within my expectation. After all, he really had nothing left, and the only way was to come to the person who might be soft-hearted and kind. Isn't that me, Nancy? I thought to myself that it was time to put an end to everything. So, when I saw Jason again, I was extremely calm, so calm that Jason felt a bit scared. Jason looked extremely haggard, as if he had lost all his vitality. His eyes were red, and he really looked pitiful. He almost begged me, saying, "Nancy, I know everything now. I misunderstood you and wronged you. Can you forgive me this one time?" Seeing that I remained unmoved, he asked me in an even more humble tone, "Just let me be by your side as a brother, as a friend, okay?" I stared at him and slowly said, "It's too late. The 16-year-old Nancy is already dead." With each sentence I said, Jason was extremely shocked. He mumbled, trying to say something but couldn't get any words out. I saw his expression changing constantly. Maybe he was slowly recalling how he had treated me during those 10 years in the previous life. Being cold and demeaning was just a trifle, and scolding and yelling at me were even more common. Even worse, he left me alone in a private room full of smoke and the lewd stares of men. He casually took away the opportunity that I had worked so hard for by staying up late and burning the midnight oil. He left me, who was injured, at the scene of a car accident just to go and see Ella. No matter what I wanted to do, he always kept me pinned down, struggling like imprisonment and torture. Jason tentatively asked me, "Nancy, is there really no chance for me at all? Can you still treat Ella the same as before?" I asked. "If I say yes, will you forgive me?" I looked at Jason's almost naive eyes and sighed. Some people always like to deceive themselves, thinking that as long as they deceive themselves, they can deceive others. Have you ever seen a broken mirror mended, a river flowing backwards, or the sun rising in the west and setting in the east? I said bluntly. Jason's eyes dimmed little by little until only despair was left. He understood. He finally understood. "I'm sorry. I won't bother you anymore." "Yeah, that's good." Hearing my answer, Jason paused for a moment and then turned around and left. Finally, everything was over. I felt like the shackles on me had disappeared. I seemed to have been reborn, and my future life would be bright and splendid. In September, Hawk was going to register at Peking University. Before leaving, our two families had a meal together. When leaving after the meal, he said to me, "Nancy, I'll be waiting for you at Peking University." He stared at me with a smile on his face, which made me feel a little flustered for no reason. But I still nodded as if nothing had happened and then turned around and fled in a hurry. The past is like smoke, gone and can't be chased after. And the future will be full of hope and infinite possibilities. In September of the new year, Hawk and I went to Peking University together.